And welcome, friends. Thank you for being with us again today, Tuesday. My goodness, the week is going to fly. And here we are, Grace Cafe. Thank you so much for joining with us today. And yeah, we're going to do a little something different, but something I want to be doing more of. In fact, we are this week. And that is to have some guests on and hear some other voices of what's going on, uh, not only just in their individual lives, but just in the landscape of this shutdown. And you see the schedule there, our shutdown schedule, Monday through Sunday, and sometimes twice a day. So take note of that. If you can join the broadcast at other times, if you miss it live, you can always get it on our Facebook page, and they're all archived there. Just go to GG Chesapeake. That's GG Chesapeake, and everything's there. And we're so very thankful that we can do this and do it this way. Um, so we are appreciative for that. Eric, thank you so much for that piano work, and because I don't have the rights to that music, he does, and so that's great. Well, thank you for being with us. And there's been a lot, in terms of we would say information, and we appreciate everything that we can know or can come to an understanding. It's kind of like the Word of God. You can know the basics of salvation, being born again, and what it means, but then you go deeper because you really develop and cultivate an intimacy, firsthand, first person experience in a life of faith. And so we have with us today Tania Monroe, and she's a RN, she's a nurse. Is that right, Tanya?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to. Anyway, Tanya is an RN. There you are, and we are thankful that you could be with us today. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. People don't need to see me, but and so tell us a little bit, okay? Because I think you've got a great story, great testimony in light of where God has you. And but tell us a little bit. You've been. Where did you go to school? That's a good place to start.
So I went to William Patterson. It's in North New Jersey.
Okay, and you took up the nursing program, which, by the way, they have a very good nursing program. And upon graduating, did you go directly into a local hospital there, or which direction did you take with your nursing career?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough. I was able to work at Morristown Medical Center. So I started there about my first year and a half of nursing.
Wow. Okay. All right. And you're one of those. I don't know what you know what you're called. You get assigned, move around, travel. In fact, you came down to Maryland and was working in one of the major hospitals down here. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm a travel nurse. It's kind of like I'm a contractor. I don't work for the hospital. I work for a company, which allows me to work at different hospitals for 3 months, and I'm able to work there. If they have me, I'm able to work there for longer. So about a year and a half ago, I was at John Hopkins. Last year, I was in various hospitals in California. Recently, I was in the Virgin Islands, and now I'm able to work in New York.
Well, that's amazing because now, how does that work? The going to different places because were you assigned to New York? And this was well, let's put it this way. You've been in Manhattan for how long now?
Only for a couple weeks. I was actually going to stay in the Virgin Islands, and then I saw that there was a big need in New York, um, so I decided to go there. But I came up here April 20th, so
Okay.
maybe 3 or 4 weeks I've been here.
Yeah, yeah. And this is our ninth week of the shutdown. That's how we're calculating it. And we've been doing these broadcasts twice a day, almost every day, except on Wednesday, I think it is. but the case be no Thursday. But tell us a little bit about, you were in the Virgin Islands. Man, that was a great place to be nursing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, what did you hear that got your attention concerning the virus outbreak in New York?
So there's actually a lot of job needs on Facebook. I got emails, a bunch of texts per day, just for a lot of job offers in New York. I think there was over maybe 500 needs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was going to say in the Virgin Islands, but then I thought I remember 9/11, and I was only in fourth grade, but I was hearing other nurses and doctors talk about how they went to help in New York, and they said if something drastic like that happened, I would have loved to help, but I was in fourth grade, I couldn't do anything. But when I heard about this pandemic going on, I said I wanted to help. New York is like my home. I grew up in New Jersey, which is only like 15 miles away from New York. So I just felt the need to help. Also, I'm in a lot of group chats because I keep my per diem job. I still work in Newark, New Jersey,
Mm.
and they had all these needs. They said there was unlimited overtime. Half of the staff was out sick. Some of them decided they were going to go retire. And then I'm also in another group chat with other nurses and doctors who work in New York, and just the stories they had about multiple patients being intubated during the same shift, and how multiple people died alone on just one shift alone.
Mm.
So that prompted me to want to help.
That is, I would say, and this is why we want to talk a little bit about it. Um, frontline, front and center in terms of what was happening with the medical staff. Now, you mentioned this word, and I don't know, and I, if you could maybe describe it, but not incubated. That's what they do with babies, right? But intubated, is that the word?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's when you're not able to breathe on your own,
Mm-hmm.
so they have to put a tube down your throat so a machine can breathe for you.
Okay. Now that pretty much was the standard procedure, or that's what, this is what we were hearing coming, out of New York, is that we need ventilators. We need thousands of ventilators. And I'm thinking like, well, what are those and why so many? But this was I guess it would be the method of treating this virus was that people needed to be um, put on these ventilators. Is that right?
Yeah, because from what I understand, it's like a really on a on an X-ray it shows a really bad pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not really able to get oxygen in by you breathing on your own. So the doctors they would intubate you. So you would the machine would be able to breathe for you.
Intubate. Okay, I'm going to try to remember that word. It's a $25 word. Okay, so you're, working in the Virgin Islands. Now, were there any cases that you were aware of on the island, or were you ever exposed, might we say, in your work while you were at the Virgin Islands?
Yeah, so actually, one of my friends I live next to, um, we were out on a boat one day, and then the next day, she was sick. And she was a pretty healthy girl. She was only 30 years old. So she had the chest pain, she had the shortness of breath, she couldn't catch her breath at all. So I believe she had it, and a couple of days prior, she took care of a patient, of a child that was positive.
Hmm.
And I was with her all day, so I know I had it. I didn't have any symptoms, thank God, but I knew I was a carrier. Also, I had a patient who was positive, and I didn't even know she was positive, and I took care of her. So,
Okay, yes. So this asymptomatic condition, which is very, you don't know, or yeah, you're a carrier, as you said, but you're not aware of that fact until maybe you're symptomatic. But Let's talk a little bit about now. You're getting on a plane to fly into New York, okay, to get to the hospital, to because it's in your heart to want to do this. You want to help. So, getting off at where you flew in, what were some of the encounters that maybe you had coming in to the airport?
Um, to be honest, there were no. I thought there would be more precautions because I heard other travelers they had to get their temperature taken. They actually had to be swabbed to see if they were positive for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't encounter any of that. I mean, most of the people they just wore masks, and I flew into Newark, which is usually a really busy airport, and it wasn't as busy. But I mean, no one stopped me. I've heard the National Guard were at different airports, and they were stopping people, but that didn't happen with me. So I
Mm-hmm.
was actually quite surprised.
Yeah, I would say so, and depending on what we're hearing via the media as far as the precautions being put in place, but you did see a lot of folks wearing masks. Is that right?
Yeah.
And were there mask wearers on the plane coming out of the Virgin Islands?
Um, about most people, like half and half.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And did you think that that was a medical precaution maybe that you needed to take in consideration because of where you were coming from or where you were going, maybe?
I think where I'm going, it's no one. This virus is so new, so not a lot of people know everything about it. So it's hard to know, am I still a carrier after 2 weeks?
Hmm.
Um, but I work in the ER, so I have direct contact with it. So I would wear a mask.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and it's true that we don't know much about the coronavirus that produces the illness of COVID-19. What we do know about the general viral you know experiences that in this case also that it's a respiratory illness, so it's breathing factors and oxygenation, all of that. But so let's go into now. Which hospital did you actually end up at?
So I'm at New York Presbyterian, Columbia,
Okay,
in Washington Heights.
all right. And was there a reason why you went to that hospital and maybe not in Queens or Brooklyn or whatever the case may be?
Oh, that's where I was able to get a job.
All right, so yeah, that was the calling card. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the preparation for personal protection. Okay, so staff, you're going to go into a hot zone, let's call it, just so we can get a little drama in here. But you're going in, and what did you expect as far as your own, as the hospital providing you personal protection, or not, or whether you felt that you needed more equipment for personal protection?
So, starting off in the Virgin Islands, a lot of people on the island they're actually afraid to take care of patients that were positive for COVID.
Mm,
So it was a lot of us, as we say, travelers or contractors that would get the COVID positive patients, or we would say rule out. So we suspect they have it, but we're still waiting for the results. So I took care of a couple down there. But first we started off, we had a lot of protection. We had the N95 mask,
mm-hmm.
which completely seals your face. Um, we had goggles, we had a face shield, we had multiple layers, um, like a surgical gown, and then gown over that, and then paper scrubs. And we put booties on our foot. So we had a lot of supplies. But then they started cutting down because they were running out of supplies. But it was still sufficient enough. But when I left and I came to New York, I was privileged because we get new N95 masks every shift. And I heard some hospitals in New York, the nurses have to wear it up to 2 weeks,
Mm, mm-hmm.
which is insane.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Now, so some hospitals, there was a constant flow of protective equipment, and it was there, and I'm sure that they appreciated that. But you were aware of, and the talk and the chatter was that there were hospitals that didn't have that as a provision.
Yeah, I think more of the city hospitals, because I believe the hospitals that were really hit hard were city hospitals like Elmhurst,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is in Brooklyn.
Right.
Um, but luckily, I'm working now for New York Presbyterian. So,
Okay. And was there a specific area in other than the ICU unit that was, in other words, did you see where there was the need for additional beds and space for the numbers of COVID patients coming in?
well, so I was in the Virgin Islands. By the time I came up here, I'm an ER nurse, so we're truly
Okay,
the front line.
okay,
So what happens is when we get patients, we work them up. We do blood work. We do tests, and if everything is negative, or if they're sick but they can manage it at home, we send them home. If they have to be admitted to the hospital, we contact an inpatient doctor. They accept the patient, they put in orders, and we send them up to the floor. So they either can go to like a med surg floor, they can go to a telemetry floor, they can go to step down, they can go to ICU. But what happens is if it's the ICU unit is full upstairs, we, the ER, have to keep the patient down there.
mm-hmm,
So what happens is the ER gets crowded. So that's what was happening for the past couple of weeks. They were saying that all the rooms, they had patients that they were intubated, like we were talking about, on ventilators.
right.
So usually an ICU nurse, they only have to take care of 2 to 3 patients at a time because the patients are really sick and they need care. If you're a med surg nurse, it depends where you are, but usually they can have up to like maybe 5 to 7 patients. What's tough with the ER is I can have 2 or 3 sick ICU patients, and then I have 3 or 4 other patients I have to take care of.
So, and then you mentioned something quite interesting that after you've evaluated someone that came in, oh, I knew what I wanted to ask. So, people who were coming into the ER, were they coming in? Because generally, the ER can be very busy, just people. you know, I banged my knee or I got a broken bone. I mean, it could be a spectrum of things. But did you find that people who felt that they had the virus were coming into the ER or not?
Um, Again, when it was really busy, I was in the Virgin Islands.
Right?
There, I would say a lot of people, they were telling everyone to stay home if you think you have the virus, unless you're really short of breath, you have really bad chest pain. So I found only maybe like a couple people, maybe 2 to 3 people per shift.
Hmm.
They're in the Virgin Islands. I really couldn't say how it was up here.
Well, the reason I'm asking that question is because I spoke with, no, I didn't speak with, I heard a doctor's account where people were afraid to come to the hospital. They were sick, they were ill, maybe not with COVID. Now, let's back up a little bit. Maybe they didn't think they had the disease, but they were afraid that if they went to the hospital, they would get the disease. And so there was this catch 22. I'm sick, but I can't go because I think I could get more sick with it. There was fear that was really dominating. So let's look at the situation. I know that maybe you were not in the initial crush and you know seeing the kind of scrambled response because right, we didn't know what this virus was going to do or how quickly or slowly it was going to spread. But did you find that there was a lot of fear, maybe amongst the hospital staff while this was going on?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, a lot of people in the Virgin Islands, a lot of people, they didn't want to take care of patients that were positive or that were rule out, and they kind of made the travel nurses take those patients. Um, I've heard stories about how a lot of doctors, they didn't really try to go in the rooms that much because they were afraid to get the disease. They're afraid, to bring it home to their families. They're afraid to spread it.
Sure.
A lot of nurses, they retired after it just because they were afraid as well.
Well, wasn't there? I remember if you tested positive or you felt that you were infected, 14 days of self isolation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the protocol. So yeah, so someone could be determined as you know affected, and they were told, you need to go home and you need to stay isolated. But that didn't mean that they could be isolated from their families because the schools were closed, everything, so everybody was at home. And now they're seeing where the people who, sheltered at home or sheltered where they are now the new cases or the most recent cases for infection.
Yeah, definitely. What's really nice though is that New York, they're giving free hotel for nurses.
Okay.
Um, so they're able to stay for free. So, but that's not the case everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is kind of scary because, especially if you live with your older parents, they can get it.
Right. Sure. I mean, the high risk group of which, my brother and my sister-in-law tested positive. They live in New Jersey, and my brother in particular, he had 15 years ago he had a disease that just crushed his immune system, and he had to
Mm-hmm.
daily take medication even now, for that condition. But both of them came through, and they neither one of them ever had to go to the hospital. My sister-in-law, we're of the same age, so we're in that age group that is most susceptible. I'm just thinking how it's so unsure, and the uncertainty is part of the fear factor. It's I don't know, maybe I'm positive, maybe I'm not, or even if I am, like how you were thinking, but asymptomatic, what do you do and how do you think and how do you go? But here's where I'm going with this. uh, you knew going in that some of these things, the potential danger and all of that, but you went in by faith. And tell us a little bit about what what gave you an assurance and a security about working in those kinds of conditions.
Well, I'm young, I'm pretty healthy, and I thought my friend gave it to me already. So I was like, oh, I got it. I can't get it again. Um, but um, as Jeremiah 29:11 says, God does for another plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was a coincidence or an accident that I became a nurse, and I really feel the need to help people. So I felt like I was called to go help New York, to go back home and help. So
And the motivation of, and we understand this, of love, not just love for people, but love for God, in understanding that, faithful is He who's called you, who will also what? Do it. Meaning that He wouldn't have called you, and this is, I think, what I'm hearing you say, He wouldn't have called you, led you into the nursing profession if, in fact, He wasn't going to also have some kind of provision for you to fulfill, your calling. And I think that's so crucial in any area of life because, be honest, we face danger every day. I think in some instances it's like, yeah, okay, um, these cities and a couple of hospitals are very dangerous, hot zones, and highly infectious. At the same time, people are going to die in plane crashes and car accidents, and it's life is risky business.
Yeah, definitely.
And so this assurance that we're talking about is not just because there's a unknown virus and we're not sure what's going on, and it does take people, and they die, and our hearts are broken for those that lost their lives. But it would be the same if they lost their life if they fell down the steps. um, but at the same time, having some kind of assurance and confidence, not in the protective gear, thank God if you have it, but as you were pointing out, that was not necessarily the case in every hospital that was treating uh, COVID patients. Is that right?
Yes.
So, in closing, and just thinking about, well, you have a contract to stay at Presbyterian Hospital for how long?
Only until June 13th.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
And what are you seeing now? Because you're going to go, you came off of a shift. Was it Sunday night? Was it, or Monday?
Yeah, Sunday night.
Okay, and you're going to go back tomorrow night.
Tonight.
Tonight. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So when you go back, what do you see happening? I mean, are the cases decreasing? Is things settling down a little bit more, a little less frantic? Just give us a snapshot of what's going on from your perspective in the hospital.
Yeah, so social distancing is really actually working. The ER is empty. I mean, we still have patients, but it's very slow. They say usually they have 200 patients, during the night in the ER, and
Hmm.
there's only been like 50 to 60 patients in the whole ER. My ER that I still work per diem at in New Jersey, I worked one shift,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never seen it so empty, even during a snowstorm. It was busier than it was the night I worked, and they're very overstaffed now that my hospital in New Jersey, I can't even pick up hours there.
Okay.
Um, so,
No, I know. And they're talking about, some, folks being furloughed or whatever the case may be. And now this is a paradox, Tanya, because it's interesting that you drew the analogy about, quiet like during a snowstorm. And that's because people are not going out. Okay, not just not going out to the park or not going out to the gym or, the social events. But in a way, they're and I'm thinking back that maybe they are afraid of just going to. They may have a reason to go to the hospital, but they don't want. You know what I mean? They're too fearful of getting sick and bringing it home, so they gut it out at home. Does that make any sense?
yeah, so a lot of people, they come to the ER for reasons that they could really wait and they can go see their primary care doctor about.
I see.
But I
Mm-hmm.
guess they just get anxious or they don't want to wait till they come to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those cases, they're actually doing what they're supposed to. They're actually waiting and going to their primary care doctor.
Got
So,
it. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, if there was one thing or something that you think that as believers we could pray for during this time, from your perspective, from what you've seen, what might that be?
Um, just the hospital staff, the frontliners, the patients that are sick and they're having to be alone in the hospital, and their family members, because it's hard that they can't even visit their family members and they're dying in the hospital alone.
Yeah, that
I
is
think that's
huge.
the hardest part.
It is. It definitely is. In fact, I know of one person. I was on the phone with them yesterday, and their brother passed away in Manhattan. Well, Bronx, I think it was, and and they couldn't go. They couldn't be with him. And even to this day, so that happened what 3 weeks ago, and they're still needing to get his body out of New York and to have the arrangements here made in Maryland. And I thought like that is insane. That is like how do we how do you process that? But you're right. So that would be I think a very very important point in our prayer to pray for these families that are experiencing the death mode of COVID-19, not just the sickness and not just the illness, but the loved ones who have passed away. And you're right, they can't go and be with them on any level. So, well, Tanya, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you can always review the broadcast by going to our Facebook page, and so can our audience here today. Thank you for being with us. And Tanya, amazing. We're going to be praying for you. Um, and until June, you said you'll be in Manhattan. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, dear. Well, thank you for being our guest today. And we certainly do appreciate having this time with you. And we appreciate having time with you, our watching audience. And we'll be on tomorrow at noon for our lunchtime wrap. And we're actually going to be um, with a person who has a business. They own a barbershop. Well, their dad does, and they're slowly opening up and slowly, what does that look like for a private small business owner? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow at noontime right here on Grace Cafe. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Tanya. God bless you. And
Thank you for having me.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Great. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow, Lord willing.